Welcome everyone to today's webcast, Harmonize Traditional and Agile Project Execution with Top-Down Planning Controls. My name is Ben Chamberlain. I'm the Chief Product Officer here at UMT360. Today we're really going to take a look at one of the realities faced by many IT and enterprise PMOs, which is projects are being executed in multiple methodologies and by virtue of that, multiple tools. So what are the top-down planning controls we can deploy to give us visibility, transparency and insight across all this work? We'll look specifically at some of the more advanced generic planning models, program-based planning, capability-driven planning, and specifically how they can help abstract across traditional and agile workloads. Before I jump in, a few housekeeping announcements. We will be pausing at the end today for Q&A, so please use the GoToWebinar Q&A manager to post questions throughout, and we will stop at the end. So before starting, just quickly for those of you that don't know who we are, UMT360, widely recognized as experts in all flavors of enterprise portfolio management, both from a consulting services and best practices perspective, as well as technology we provide within the variety of domains in enterprise portfolio management. I'm kind of first to admit that enterprise portfolio management is an ambiguous term. At best, you've got different vendors sort of encroaching on the domain from a variety of angles. But what we really look to do is provide all the manage the look through are also business transformation. So let's jump into the presentation. So starting with a quick warning here, vernacular alert. It always surprises me how different terms and phrases can almost be paralyzing. Great example of programs. I always thought that was a well understood term, but some organizations call them initiatives, programs, portfolio epics. You know, what's the difference between a business capability, a business service, a product? So what we'll be looking at today really are generic planning frameworks, and I'll be giving an overview of different portfolio constructs. And don't get too worried about different terms of things, because you can simply reverse engineer your own terms into this model. So I took this from the Gartner IT Key Metrics report in 2016 and represents really what we're going to talk about today. What this survey showed, admittedly it's just focusing on IT key metrics, is that there are projects are being managed in different methodologies, with 55% in more of a traditional waterfall mode and 45% of projects in another mode, which they broke down either by iterative techniques or different techniques that sit under the umbrella of Agile. So what is really driving this kind of mixed, heterogeneous world of tools and methodology? Well, the first is, I think there is an explosion of PPM tools or tool proliferation in the PPM space. It's almost like now you're a kid in the candy store in terms of sport for choice, in terms of which tools you want to adopt. Back in the day when we first built our original portfolio management product in the early 2000s, it seemed that organizations were really looking to standardize on a PPM tool, one of the traditional PPM tools like Microsoft or Niku, which then became Clarity, or Primavera. And really it was like, let's just get a tool and utilize it across the enterprise, even if it's not fit for purpose for the different functions within the organization. So you saw tools like Primavera being brought on in construction, then being used within the IT department. But today it seems that we are spoiled for choice, because there's a lot of PPM tools that now could be utilized by any team. Gartner talks about work and task management tools, tools like Basecamp, or even the new Office Planner in Office 365 from Microsoft, simple task management. Of course, we still have the traditional enterprise PPM tools, but also we now have a load of SaaS-based, lighter-weight PPM tools, tools like Innotats, Clarizen, and others. Of course, Agile tools have become very prominent, Jira, Rally, and others. best-of-breed vertical solutions, as well as top-down portfolio management solutions such as UMT360. What's key today is organizations and teams want tools that are fit for purpose. Teams want to be able to choose the productivity tools of their choice. It's become far easier, certainly with the advent of the cloud and SaaS-based solutions, to procure, bypass IT and procure PPM solutions. So the reality is that there's a whole host of PPM solutions out there to be choose from, and many organizations have multiple types of PPM tools at their disposal, making it difficult for the PMO or raising interesting challenges. How do we think about integrating these tools to get visibility across all of our projects? One of the other reasons for a mixture of methodologies and tool sets is the kind of mandate of business transformation or digitalization, something that Gartner's been talking a lot about lately. So when Gartner talks about the digital business transformation, they say a digital business is the creation of new business designs by blurring the digital and physical worlds. Or digitalization is the use of digital technologies to change a business model and provide a new revenue or value producing.
You can hear me now. I think we've just had some audio issues. Okay, so that was unusual, so apologies for that again. So I'm not sure where you quite lost me, but let's pick up on this slide. So one of the other reasons for mixture tools is the mandate of business transformation. And what this really is organizations leveraging the nexus of forces, so mobile, cloud, social, big data, really to look at overhauling their business capabilities, products and services to drive a competitive advantage. We all know the poster childs out there, companies such as Amazon, Netflix, and of course Uber that have done this to greater success. This is raising a number of key questions for executives and in turn the PMO community in terms of what are the processes we need to deal with this? How do we look to align investments with strategic priorities? How do we look at connecting everything in our enterprise so we can fully transform all the processes and control all enterprise investments within the organization? What do we need to do to better identify and fund innovation? Do we need to change our execution methodologies to deliver innovation quicker? Now, when you think about business transformation, often people also refer to enterprise agility, which again is giving rise to a whole host of different methodologies. So the Agile way, iterative, scaled techniques to take Agile to the enterprise like SAFe. Even Gartner talks about 2 ways of working bimodal, which is combines traditional waterfall methods with more iterative and agile techniques. So let's jump to the first poll. The first poll is how many work management PPM tools would you estimate your organization owns today? And the options are 1 to 2, 3 to 5, 5 to 7, or more. So a couple of seconds, pretty easy poll. Okay, let's switch over. Close the poll. So 22% 1 to 2, 3 to 5, 53%, and they drops down from there, 14%, 10%. So again, a lot of tools out there at our disposal. If we go back to the slides. Next poll. Which methodologies are being utilized across your organization today? Options are, just kind of back of the napkin stuff, managing projects in Excel through different task management tools, Smartsheet, others. Waterfall could be within software development lifecycle or even stage gate methodology, Six Sigma, iterative, Agile, and that's where the list stops, just because we didn't have more than 5 options here in this poll. So a couple of seconds to answer this. Let's close it down. So again, the two leading ones, which is good for today's discussion, Waterfall and Agile, 66% Waterfall, 20% Agile on this call, which is obviously a little bit different to, actually how many were in iterative there? Iterative? No, okay, so still different to the metric, the IT metric poll we just showed, but still a good mixture of tools. Okay, so whether you're an enterprise PMO, an IT PMO, I think we've just proven through those polls, we've got to face the reality that it's a mixed environment out there, both from a tool set perspective and from a methodology perspective. So we've got to take a step back and think about what are the top-down controls we need to drive better visibility across this heterogeneous environment. Here are some of the questions that many PMOs are asking. What are the right top-down planning techniques and cadence we need to align execution with strategy? How do we integrate PPM teams and their chosen productivity tools of choice? You know, in this mixed environment, how do I get better view across capacity and resource utilization? What metrics should we be standardizing in our project, program, and portfolio reporting? How do I really identify dependencies and manage those across different types of projects? And the list goes on. Most of these questions we'll be looking at answering later. Let's start with a look at different top-down planning techniques which ultimately help align execution with strategy. At 360, we spent the last 20 years working with organizations, really helping them to define top-down planning techniques to better align execution with strategy. And there's sort of three generic techniques we see being utilized out there. Project-driven investment approach, program-driven investment approach, and capability-driven investment approach can also be referred to as kind of a product-driven investment approach too. There's a step up in maturity as you move left to right here. And I'll give a high-level overview of each of these. First, the project-driven investment approach often starts with the definition and prioritization of strategy, often by execs and stakeholders in a silo. And then it's normally used in more sort of traditional annual planning techniques. So when you hit that kind of annual planning horizon within the year, project requests get teed up, whether they're going to be executed in an agile manner or through a traditional waterfall approach. Using semi-sophisticated techniques, impact assessment and government projects into strategy, and then using optimization and capacity planning techniques really to select the best bundle of projects and work that aligns with the strategy. It is a good technique, actually one that we introduced back into the market back in the early 2000s. However, the one frailty of this approach is it's more bottom-up than it is top-down, mainly because strategy is defined and prioritized in a silo, and then project and the resulting demand is captured, disconnected from the strategy, and part of the business case involves mapping against strategy to select the best of whatever's teed up. So you're never quite sure, did you start with the right demand? You definitely know that you selected the best of whatever projects were teed up. The next two approaches, program-driven and capability-driven, look to overcome that one frailty, which is how do I ensure the demand, the resulting programs and projects that get created are created with the strategy in mind. So program-driven deals with a systematic decomposition of strategy into key investment programs and then programs down into projects. Again, could be executed in any methodology, Agile or Waterfall. In this model, programs act as a natural bridge between strategy and execution, and they are living, breathing things. They're not just reporting veneer that sits on top of projects. So if we expand this out, you'll start to see this approach in action where you decompose your strategy from objectives into key strategies and business drivers. Programs become actionable outcomes related to each strategy. They're things that you generate, you fund, you reallocate funds to, and then can be broken down into the underlying execution. So you could have, as shown in this example, programs that are being executed 100% Agile, which is program 1 here. Program 2, which is being executed 100% in the traditional way, waterfall way, or program 3, which we'll look at more today, which potentially is a program that is sitting on top of projects being managed in multiple methodologies, traditional, agile, or even a traditional project with some development activities being managed in an agile way. So the capability-driven investment approach is the most mature of the three, and it introduces the concept of business capabilities. Business capabilities really represent the kind of operating functions or operating fabric of your organization. And you're able to do an analysis, as we'll look at a little later, of strategy into business capabilities, and use that analysis really to generate the demand, the projects and the program. So if I have a strategy that doesn't have a supporting capability, maybe I'm going to onboard a new capability into my capability portfolio through a project or a program. If I have strategies that are dependent on poor performing capabilities, I'm going to make investment decisions to improve those capabilities to knock the strategy out of the park. Again, executed through the demand. So the demand in this model, again, is being generated top-down directly from the sort of interchange and understanding of strategy and the capability of the organization's capabilities to deliver on that strategy. It's also a model that IT is gravitating to, because now we can look to further decompose capabilities down, capabilities being part technology, people, process. So I can start to decompose the technology portion of capabilities down into the underlying IT landscape, whether that's organized IT services, application, technology, however you break that down. I can engage the business in fundamental changes I need to make to the business capabilities, and then align my IT and technology roadmap to those business priorities. And this is actually a framework we see organizations adopting to answer to this business transformation mandate, where you really need to see all moving parts within your organization and understand the kind of 6 degrees of separation that exists between all enterprise portfolios, capabilities, programs, applications, and technology, as illustrated here in this simple example. So let's see that in action here. So the only difference between this model and the last model is the introduction of capabilities and the IT technologies portfolio too, or the IT landscape too. But again, what we'll be focusing on more today really is the decomposition down into programs and how they can be used to straddle multiple project types, in this case Agile and Waterfall. Now, we see an example of the capability-driven investment approach in action here. We'll see how we can really get a clear line of sight from strategy all the way through to execution. So in this example here, based on the insurance industry here, I have 3 key strategies, one of which I'm going to investigate: reduce loss ratio by settling claims more quickly. So I can start to mine down my business capability portfolio. Business capability portfolio is normally hierarchical, kind of 3 to 4 levels deep. So one of the level 1 capabilities here that relates to this strategy is our ability to manage claims. If we drill down within managed claims to see the sort of sub-capabilities, sub-functions within, we can see that the process and investigate claims capability and settle claims capability are 2 capabilities we may want to investigate more to deliver on the strategy to reduce loss ratio by settling claims more quickly. I can now, because I can map into my technology environment of my IT landscape, start to understand which applications are supporting those key capabilities, claim notification and claim processing, and use that to start to generate the program improvements or execution that are going to make changes to the capabilities and the supporting technology to drive the changes we need. So program around claims service workflow, claims and at the accident scene. So change we make. So we're able to very quickly bring all the moving parts of our organization together to get a clear line of sight from the strategy all the way through to the different components of execution to realize that strategy. So 2 more polls, and they'll be the last polls of the day. So based on those techniques that we were just looking at, I know we spent only minutes on each, project-driven, program-driven, or capability-driven, which planning technique closely or most mirrors the technique that your organization is utilizing today? Is it the project-driven investment approach, program-driven, or capability-driven investment approach? So project-driven, program-driven, capability-driven, or none of the above? So a few more seconds and then we can close the poll. Okay, let's close the poll. So, actually, surprising. So 39% project-driven, which tends to normally be the most that we see. 43% are on program-driven, the way that I defined it, and 15% already graduated to the capability-driven or product-driven investment approach, which is great. And 3%, not utilizing any of these techniques, which probably means it's still kind of first come, first served from a funding perspective. So let's return to the slides. And ask a similar question. Okay, so which planning technique do you see your organization adopting in the future? So, if you're using project-driven today, where do you see yourself in the next 3 to 5 years? Same for program-driven, capability-driven. Those of you that answer that, 14% probably going to continue to master that particular framework. So, same project-driven, program-driven, capability-driven. I simply removed the none because I think we all should be having one of these techniques at some point in the near future. So a couple more seconds and then we'll... Okay, let's close the poll. So when we look to techniques to evolve in the future, we see that maybe the 3% or so are now in the project-driven that were no approach before. 36% now moving to program-driven, and 62%, which is a healthy number, looking to address the capability-driven investment approach. That is pretty much what I'm seeing day in, day out when we speak to different organizations. I would say the capability-driven investment approach is normally a little higher. Around 80% of organizations I speak with are starting to drive that model, but are a few years off having that fully driven out across the organization. Okay. So we looked at a high level at the top-down planning controls that we could establish. And for the rest of the presentation, we really will take a look more, somewhere between the sort of capability-driven and program-driven planning framework, and talk to that. The first slide here, really looking at right-sizing governance controls. And really we can see the full life cycle here broken down by upfront kind of strategize and allocation, into planning and executing a portfolio, into evaluating the investments once they are complete. What we find when organizations are moving from more of a project-driven to the sort of program-driven is that the governance controls tend to become more rigorous at the program level versus the project level. So in project-driven, there's quite extensive controls at the project level, but as you fully graduate to program-driven and capability-driven, more of the governance placed at that investment layer, which is the programs. And what we look at here in the Standardize and Allocate is techniques to analyze and identify key investment programs. And we'll look again at examples of how to do that by assessing the business capability portfolio and strategy to generate investment requests or programs as you see here. Of course, there's nothing stopping you just generating programs outside of that analysis and entering them in. So in the program controls, this is where we look to propose a program, build out either high level or detailed business cases, review before moving into define and further evaluating and building out the business case. So propose lightweight business case, define more heavyweight business case, before then looking at funding approval, so which programs to invest in. Once the programs have been funded, we can now start to decompose down our execution of some projects that will be executed in a waterfall manner, some projects that are executed in an agile manner. Now, It may well be that you need lighter sort of approval controls around these projects because you're just simply going to approve the projects within the programs that they've been created in. Now, of course, from a governance perspective, we can then deal with the idiosyncrasies of each methodology. So we see the traditional kind of waterfall approach here of analyze through to deploy, as well as the iterative approach through execution and sprints and incremental rollout of capabilities in an agile manner. Everything rolls up back to the program level, so you can continue to measure the kind of business value and ongoing performance of the investment that was teed up in the first place at the program level. From a benefits realization perspective or overall evaluation perspective, your choices here. You can choose to track the benefits at the project level, but more often or not, we see the benefit kind of tracking and realization being done at a program level. So benefit estimating at the program level and benefits tracking it at the program level 2 versus the underlying project level. So for the remainder of this presentation, we're going to look at some of the sort of key topics within each of these kind of stages of strategize and allocate, plan and execute, and evaluate. So let's start with strategize and allocate. So these are some of the things we're going to look at. First of all, how do we look at identifying and generating the key investment programs? And what's the information we may want to include in the program business case? What funding techniques can we utilize to allocate funds, both people and human resources, to these programs? And then the importance of publishing transformation roadmaps. Now, this is not comprehensive. This is just areas that I pulled out from that strategize and allocate phase. So first, analyzing strategy and business capabilities to generate or identify investment programs. We talked about this already to a degree, how you can use the assessment of strategy and the performance of our overall business capabilities to generate the right demand. And this first heat map here, as part of the capability-driven investment approach, we need to understand the mapping between our key business strategies and the capabilities that ultimately allow us to execute. So we can see here key strategic objectives and capabilities coming from our capability portfolio that are supporting each one of the strategic objectives. You may see here that we have a capability that does not support any of the strategic objectives. Does this mean that we need to decommission that, retire that capability, or simply maybe more of a foundational business capability supporting operational aspects of the business? We also have an example here of a strategic objective with no supporting business capabilities, which is a problem. How, as an organization, are we going to deliver on this strategic priority? So maybe we need to onboard a new capability into our portfolio, which is again an example of how we may generate a program request to deal with bringing that capability online. Now, when you adopt the capability-driven planning approach, you really are treating business capabilities as an individual portfolio in their own right, which you manage and analyze. So it's a living, breathing thing. As part of maintaining your business capability portfolio inventory, you're going to look at deriving different scoring assessments, looking at cost, performance, business importance, and performance. There's different surveys and scoring techniques you can use to generate and trend these scores over time. It allows you then to sort of generate kind of heat maps like this that allow you to apportion a kind of investment weighting on these capabilities. So the bubbles here represent, the capabilities, actually broken down by the Gartner's PACE layer segmentation here, systems of innovation all the way through to systems of record. So my capabilities that are sitting up on the top left, these are ones with high business importance but relatively low performance based on their scoring. So it's likely we're going to need to invest in these more heavily to bring them closer to the middle of this chart. And we want to get in this kind of middle diagonal, which is the kind of perfect ratio here between importance and performance. So what are the investments I'm going to make to improve the performance of these critical business capabilities? So we're going to increase investment in these. As I said, this kind of middle diagonal here represents the perfect ratio between business performance and performance. And we may want to just maintain investments in these capabilities because they're working well for us. Conversely, if we look at capabilities on the far right here, which are high performance but relatively low business performance, and maybe those are capabilities that we're going to reduce investment over time or decrease investment over time. Any one of these decisions is going to relate to projects and programs to support changes made to our business capability portfolio. So this is one way through analyzing the strategy and how we're best going to deliver that based on the current performance of our business capabilities to tee up investment programs or investment requests. So let's look at some of the information we may want to capture in a program business case. This can be as lightweight or as heavyweight as you need it to be. Obviously, we want to capture and consolidate the right information to support ongoing funding decisions around these efforts. So descriptive metadata, description, objective, stakeholder information, key information around that. We also want to understand what types of resources we may need to and teams we may need to deliver on this. So high-level, top-down resource plans that help us to understand the resource requirements and demand for each one of these capabilities. As any good business case, we want to do a full cost-benefit assessment of this. So what are the high-level costs, cost estimates associated with delivering this particular program? We're going to look at managing programs both from sort of top-down funding perspective as well as automatically rolling up financial information from the supporting projects. So at a program, we are going to look to allocate funds and reallocate funds throughout the life of the program based on the business environment and the performance of that program. So being able to manage top-down program budget separated from the underlying projects is key. Where there's a cost, obviously we need to look at both the financial and non-financial benefits. What are the real business outcomes that this program is likely to deliver on, and what are the key benefits, both financial and non-financial, it will deliver. We also want to look at defining key milestones, key data, or when those key business outcomes are going to be reached. And you'll see a lot in the rest of this demonstration around the importance of standardizing milestones at any level for your projects, both Agile, Waterfall, programs, capabilities, so we can really start to understand the key dependencies that exist across all our portfolios. In terms of looking to which portfolio or which programs we're going to invest in, it's important to derive different scoring assessments. By impacting programs into the business strategy that's been defined, we can look at deriving strategic value. You can derive other surveys around risk, complexity, probability of success, whatever it may be. One of the metrics we see many PMOs utilizing at the moment is one called strategic yield, which actually takes the value, strategic value of the project divided by the cost, and can act as an investment viability indicator through the life of the program. One key thing, especially when thinking about integrating all these enterprise portfolios, is really to capture the 6 degrees of separation between any investment we're managing in the system, which is, okay, this program relates to these strategies, impacts these capabilities, has dependencies with these other projects, as well as other programs, or even impacts the other portfolios such as applications. So important to be able to break down the 6 degrees of separation between the investment and the other portfolios that ultimately it's looking to transform. So having built out your program business case, we can look at different funding models and options in terms of allocating funds to the programs. The first is more of a kind of linear optimization or 0-1 technique, which is where all programs compete for the available budget, and we rely on optimizing the portfolio based on the strategic yield. So the programs with the highest strategic yield, value over cost, are fully funded and resourced, and you sort of draw a line, and other programs are deferred to later in the roadmap. The next is more of a proportional optimization, where basically you really are funding a portion of all the programs, as you see here. In fact, one of them has been deferred. You're really looking at the investment level for each of the programs versus just including a program fully or not including it at all. The other funding alternative is really around business capabilities. You can actually allocate funds to business capabilities themselves, and then use either of those techniques to actually select the programs that relate to each of the business capabilities. The other important aspect here is then to be able to build out a transformation roadmap, maintaining a transformation roadmap that's sort of 3 to 5 years out, really communicating all the key programs that are going to transform the different capabilities, being able to generate that by business capability, by strategy, by division department, and really see all the key milestones across that is key. As we move on to the plan and execute, we'll look at unifying Agile and Waterfall projects, recording cross-portfolio dependencies, standardizing status reporting, and automating portfolio analysis. So, as we jump in here, this is kind of the meat of the presentation. Here we're now focusing on the plan and execute, and we're really looking at one key program, and now breaking that down into the different types of projects, both Waterfall and Agile. What's key here is bringing together both the enterprise PPM solution and the Agile solution. So all projects at a certain level need to be consolidated within their enterprise PPM solution. At a program level, we're going to identify these sort of key milestone business outcomes that we discussed, and can even maintain a program backlog of the key features that relate to those outcomes. Now, those key features can be delivered through Waterfall projects, as we see here, as well as we're also capturing sort of key milestones through these projects, projects 1, 2, 3, 4. We also want to understand the features being delivered by the Agile projects. In this case, we're simply creating Agile projects at a high level and really with a macro schedule confirming when we believe these key features are to be delivered. Now these features become a bridging point. So at this point we can mirror the project in the corresponding Agile system, and then based on the Agile methodology being used, start to break that down. So a feature can be broken down into the team and project backlogs, epics, user stories, items, and then the team can operate in their release and sprint plans, and sync information back to the Agile projects managed in the enterprise PPM system. So the key here is really to capture all our investments in the enterprise PPM system and understand between Agile and Waterfall, or the EPM system and the Agile system, what's the bridging point, whether it's going to be the feature level, user story level, it doesn't really matter. Why we like the feature level here is simply if stories, for example, or epics start to slip between sprints, we can, in the EPM solution, we can really understand the slippage at the feature level. So it's a good way of staying or maintaining macro level visibility in terms of the key deliverables of each of the projects. The other important thing is now that we have all projects in the enterprise PPM solution, we can also use the enterprise PPM solution to standardize status reporting at any level, a topic we'll touch on in a second. Now, at each one of these areas, we've been able to also record key milestones, which is key, because one of the areas that many PMOs are struggling with, even with just executing Waterfall projects, is how do I understand the key dependencies that exist between different projects. So in this example here, we generated an entity-based roadmap which is showing the dependencies between the program here, program 1, and the other portfolios under management in the system. And we're using these key milestones to generate this kind of give-get relationships. So we can understand dependencies that exist between Agile and Waterfall projects, dependencies that exist between key milestones from the project level to the program level, dependencies that exist between programs, program 1 and program 2 and 3, as you see here. I can even understand here that program 1 is delivering on a key date or milestone for the business capability 1. So the ability to be able to abstract key milestones and then drive dependencies across all portfolios included in our portfolio model is key. So next, how do we standardize status reporting across all projects and programs? I think in any environment, whether it's 100% traditional Waterfall, status reporting has always been a logistical nightmare, with PMOs having to spend far too much time manually reconciling information, or rather having reports generated and automated instantly. Obviously, when we start to bring together Agile and the world of Waterfall, we're relying on different metrics and reports in both those worlds. The key here again is at a certain level that we've consolidated all our investments, Agile projects, Waterfall projects and programs within the enterprise PPM solution, which in turn allows us to standardize and automate status reporting at any level, project level, program level, portfolio level, steering committee reports, whatever it may be. I think, again, the truth is today that executives and key stakeholders are more familiar with more of the traditional metrics for executing projects, cost performance, percent complete, work performance, schedule performance, risk, so than they are with some of the metrics from the Agile world, such as sprint burn downs, epic burn downs, team velocity, and other things. So the opportunity here is really to standardize our status reporting within the enterprise portfolio management solution, but at the same time fully integrate the Agile and EPM solutions as described before. So, at whatever level you're bridging, feature to epic to user story across these solutions, we want to be able to automatically aggregate information such as work complete, work remaining, actual work. So these reports can be fully automated. From a status reporting perspective, we also want to look at tracking all the investment status of our projects and programs in the EPM solution. So looking at tracking financial performance, deriving variances, integrating with ERP systems, automating the change requests around scope, budget, and other things. Now, that being said, we still have the ability to aggregate key Agile metrics back into the EPPM solution, or simply through reporting, provide drill down into the key metrics from the Agile world. So the key here is that we're able to standardize status reporting at any level within the EPM solution, but at the same time, Agile teams can continue to track their work in the way that they want to track and measure their work. Now we have all the information, again, consolidated in the EPPM solution. We're able at any time to look at running what-if portfolio analysis to ensure that all portfolios are delivering the maximum business value. We talked about the difficulty early on about understanding capacity. We understand now who's working on all projects, be it Agile and Waterfall. So running capacity planning analysis to easily understand or assess the impact on resource utilization or the impact of any change on capacity can be easily done. If a new business mandate or change it falls upon us, being able to instantly re-optimize the portfolio regardless of execution discipline can be done through different optimization techniques that many enterprise portfolio management tools provide. Also have the ability now through automating status reporting to roll up and support ongoing steering committee meetings where the key go, hold, kill decisions are made. Many organizations we're working for today are moving from more of an annual planning technique to more of a dynamic or continuous planning technique where you're instantly assessing the in-flight performance of any project and key investment programs and making reallocation decisions throughout the year. So the benefit here is having all projects within one system and information being at your fingertips. You can easily make changes of funding decisions at any point in the process. So last but by no means least, and we're not going to get too deep into this, is the evaluate stage. In the evaluate stage, really we're going to look at tracking benefits realization, or looking to establish a framework for benefits realization. Now, again, there's different ways that this can be deployed, and we have a whole webcast that focuses on establishing a benefits realization framework that you may want to take a look at. Now, in the strategize and allocate phase, we talked about the importance of capturing the key business outcomes and breaking out the benefit estimates at the program level. As you decompose down into the Waterfall projects, you may also want to break out the key sort of benefit estimates for the Waterfall projects and Agile projects as part of that lower level funding. One of the things that most organizations are not good at is then in plan and execute, continually revisiting those benefit estimates and reforecasting the benefits of the projects and program throughout the life, much like they reforecast cost throughout the life of the project and program. So go beyond just capturing benefit estimates to help receive funding for programs and projects, and continually evolve the benefit estimates or forecasts through the life of the project to ensure you're still delivering on projects that derive the maximum value. Now, from a benefits realization point of view, and as shown in the previous slide that we looked at from a governance perspective, it can be tracked at either level, program or project level. In this instance, we're looking to really estimate and track benefits at the investment program level. So as waterfall projects are completed or different releases are made from an Agile perspective through the sprints, we can start to track and measure the benefits and compare and contrast with the estimates and forecasts captured at any level within the model. So being able to establish the right level to track benefits, program level or project level, this example is the program level, being able to reconcile with the key strategic targets that are set from the strategic, the business drivers and business outcomes at the program level, as well as going in and recording lessons learned and other aspects we want to look at post-project completion. Again, rush for time today, especially with the audio issue, but there's a full webcast on how to establish a benefits realization framework and the steps you should take at each one of these steps of strategize, allocate, plan, execute, and evaluation. So with that, we'll wrap up, and I apologize for the audio issue up front. So some of the key takeaways here, I think we just have to recognize the fact that even if we are moving to 100% agile process, that today we're facing that kind of bimodal reality where whether it's in IT or at the enterprise level, projects will still be delivered through multiple methodologies, through multiple tools. So how do we start to establish those top-down planning techniques, program-driven, capability-driven, establish the portfolio constructs and the governance controls to deal with this reality so that we can gain complete visibility across all our initiatives? And what we looked at today, an example of consolidating all initiatives at some level with an enterprise PPM tool, but yet providing the autonomy for teams to execute in any solution of their choice, but to find the right level of integration to bring information in to automate status reporting and ongoing portfolio rebalancing events. So key takeaways of a mixed environment is here to say, what are the top-down techniques that we're going to evolve to or mature to over time, and how to integrate the different tool sets to ensure as an enterprise or IT PMO we have the information at our fingertips to make timely decisions. So from a next step perspective, please don't hesitate to reach out to UMT360. Happy to work with you to understand where you are today in your top-down planning controls, and which techniques you want to utilize tomorrow, and how to build a roadmap to move from project-driven to program-driven to capability-driven. So please take a look on UMT360.com website and learn more about PPM assessments and other techniques where the UMT360 team can help. So with that being said, got a couple of minutes still left. Let's look at the Q&A and pull out a few questions here. So if you have any questions, please post them now. I see a few lost audios again. Hopefully there's only once. Okay, so usual question that always comes up is, will the presentation be available after? Yes, we have the slides. Will be sent to everyone that attended in PDF format, so that should happen within a day or two after the event. Okay, there's one here. What if we're using them all? That's something when you say that, or what if we're using all of the planning techniques? So that is the reality. I kind of presented project-driven, program-driven, and capability-driven as distinct techniques, but the reality is that capability-driven is really a superset of them all. So most of you were moving to the capability-driven investment approach, and so that is a superset. I mean, it can be used as a top-down technique for generating the demand. As you saw when we were looking at program-driven or capability-driven, you still have the same constructs in terms of ability to drill down from strategy to programs to the underlying execution in the capability-driven approach. We just introduced business capabilities as well. The other aspect of capability-driven is it understands that the project-driven sort of bottom-up demand will still occur. So you're still going to get that project-driven demand occurring, but you're now going to have a more expansive model to assess these projects against. So when a project comes in, which capabilities is it impacting? Is it a project that's meant to onboard a new IT asset, but maybe we already have an application in the organization that does something similar. So it's an easy way to identify redundancies and duplication in a portfolio. So the business capability model is really a superset of program-driven and project-driven as well. So if you roll that out fully, you will be getting the best of all three models. Question here, there's a lot of discussion lately about moving from a project-driven mindset to a product-driven mindset, especially for Agile. How does this impact using capability-driven investments? This is that vernacular thing, because capability-driven, product-driven, it kind of can be used interchangeably. So it is a very similar model. If you think about some of the Agile methodologies out there, the ability to be able to set the themes, generate investment ideas from key products or capabilities. It is pretty much a very similar methodology or model. It's just a vernacular thing. So whether you're product-driven, capability-driven, you'll be rolling out pretty much the same model. Looking at a few more here. So, who is using capability-driven? I would say that, as I said earlier, at 80% of the organizations that we're speaking to today are starting to roll out the capability-driven framework, or a capability or product-driven framework. So when I speak to most business architects, enterprise architects, they've already started to build out and get consensus around their capability models, which is obviously the first key step in them being able to then integrate with underlying project and program portfolios. So as I say, most organizations are on that journey. They're just taking baby steps in getting there, and it really starts with getting consensus around and defining that business capability portfolio or framework, and then integrating that, in your planning process. And there's different ways that can be done. You can just start by simply standardizing at a certain level, so maybe don't go down to 3 or 4 levels deep in the capability portfolio. Just start by standardizing level 1, level 2 with the capability portfolio. Use that to start building consensus before rolling out the full capability model. I think we've touched on that one. So one more here. What has your experience been with organizations where some IT development teams work Agile while others are in a more agile delivery approach. How does that impact program level capability driven investment approaches? It's probably one I would take offline. I mean, I'm not sure how much it impacts. I mean, the capability-driven investment approach and program-driven investment approaches, they are, top-down planning approaches. You are going to utilize those to define kind of your future transformation roadmaps, and then you're going to sort of bite off chunks of that through waterfall delivery and agile delivery. So ultimately, any investment in the organization from a project perspective should roll up to one of these key program themes, which in turn can roll up to the key capabilities themselves. Okay, so I think that's all we're going to have time for. We will look at the other questions here and get back to you in answering those. Just looking for any quick one I can answer now. No, so there are a few outstanding questions, but we'll respond to those via email. Again, I want to thank you for your time today. I apologize for the unusual audio issue. I think that's the first time that we've experienced that, and so we ended up switching to computer audio versus the hard line. But again, thanks for your time today. Please look out for future webcasts from UMT360 where we jump into other topics related to enterprise portfolio management. Thanks again.